What's awesome besides America, Tim?
And besides myself, the fucking loudmouths are awesome.
Do you know why the loudmouths are awesome, Tim?
Because we can say shit that you can't say in real life. That's what we do. And
Every
guess
day.
what, Ron? Guess what?
What? Tell me what.
We're going live in 3, 2, 1. What is up, everybody? This is your boy, the Liberal Loudmouth, and I am here with, as always,
the real Ron. Tim,
what's up, Ron?
I love the intro. We're sorry about the cursey words, but it's us. We're loud. We're mouthy, and I love it. So I'm so excited about today's show, Tim. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I've been excited for this for a while. We got to meet our special guest, a while back, and it was, a lot of fun, I thought. I don't think we need to do any more introductions. Do you have anything else you want to say before we pull our guest on?
I got to say hey to Lane and Jennifer. Jennifer loves the intro, too.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate it. And what's up, Lane? Appreciate you guys showing up here.
Let's just get right to it.
All right. We have Monroe Nichols. What is going on, sir? How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. We're excited. Now, go ahead, Ron. You got something to say. Do it.
You look skinnier on the camera than you do in real life, Monroe. Representative Monroe. What I call you? Representative? What?
You can call me Monroe. It's totally fine.
Okay.
Or Supreme Allied Commander, whatever you want to do.
Okay. I like that. Can I call you Cowboy?
This is a filter. Oh man, my God. It's been a rough few days, guys. So let's just relax there.
As long as I don't call you Dak.
Yeah, I've defended my quarterback for a long time, and it's getting harder and harder to do. What I mean?
that last performance was pretty gnarly to watch. I watched that today. Woo, yeah, it was pretty rough.
They're still a 4-1 team, right?
No, we've lost 2 good, but the Cardinals beat us.
3-2, isn't it? Yeah, 3-2, I think.
Yep. We can end this part of the show. This is.
No, I just got to bring this up real quick because there's only 2 teams left that are undefeated, and one of them was San Francisco, and the other one is the Eagles.
Yeah, that's right. The Eagles are in our division. So
yeah, y'all are NFC. I'm a Broncos boy, and I'm 1-4, so I can't even talk about.
Oh
sports.
Man, I don't know. I mean, the 70 to 20?
Stop. Okay, let's move on to politics. Talk about abortion or something like that. I don't know.
42-10 felt just as bad if it makes you feel.
That's funny. Well, as we always do, Monroe, we'll give our guests a moment at the beginning of the show to just tell everybody about themselves and what you're here for and what you plan to do.
Yours. Hey, I appreciate it. Well, I don't know I can't see who's all out there watching, but Monroe Nichols, state representative. I've been in the legislature now for 7 years. Really been blessed to serve my constituents in House District 72. I grew up, the son of a police officer and a probation officer. My grandfather was a pastor. So if you can imagine what a life is like with a police officer, probation officer, and a pastor, that was my life growing up. Played football at TU, worked my way up through the ranks to City Hall, OU, Career Tech, spent my career really just serving this community in a lot of different ways. I got a 15-year-old kid who, is now getting taller than me. So I'm like having all these emotions where I'm like, hey man, do I need to just fight him one last time before he gets to all that confidence and all that kind of stuff? But, really just enjoyed my time working with folks in a lot of different ways, but also being a dad has been a lot of fun most of the time. I mean, we got
most of the time, yeah.
Some homework issues and stuff like that to work out right now. But outside of that, it's been a heck of a ride. So really excited to be here.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you're running for mayor too. Like that. Are you excited about that? I mean, you're ready to rock and roll, I guess, from what you were saying earlier.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited about it. I think that being a mayor is probably the toughest job in public service. A lot of other jobs are also difficult, but a lot of them come with at least a little bit of distance between yourself and the stuff you're working on, or a lot in the way of resources in a team. The mayor's job is one where, one day you're all in one day. You're going everything from streets to police to, trying to do your part to create jobs and protect neighborhoods and do all this kind of stuff. And at the same time, you go to the grocery store and you might see some people who love you and people on the next aisle who hate you. So on the soda aisle, they love you. On the chip aisle, they want you to kick rocks, right? But I think that,
do you have that with your representative as well, or do you?
Not really as much there. But I will tell you, when I first got elected, you guys probably remember this. We were having the budget failures and all that kind of stuff, and you needed 3/4 of the legislature to raise taxes, and I voted no on one of the tax bills that a lot of people in town wanted. And I mean, I got some hate mail then. But that's just part of doing the job, man.
Yeah. Well, you had some thoughts about this recent tax issue that came up in the special session. You want to share some of that? I mean, some of your thought process with the votes?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we really never got to a point where we voted on anything in the 2 days that we were there. I mean, we were there for only 2 days. I think what's unfortunate about what took us there is probably just pure politics, wanting to say that you did something as opposed to having a plan to do it. That being said, for I think now going on 3 years, myself and certainly my colleagues in the House Democratic Caucus have been trying to get the state's portion of the grocery tax eliminated. And part of that's because it gives immediate relief to people who are, buying eggs and milk and that type of stuff, right? So I think that's one that we can all agree on. So Democrat, Republican, there's not many people. I would say there's not one person. I never say that. There's not many people who don't agree with that. I mean, I bet 80-90% of the legislature thinks that we should eliminate the grocery tax. And we've not done it yet, right? So that was kind of a frustrating thing. I do think, and I've actually proposed legislation in the past. It can be hard as a Democrat sometimes getting your bills heard.
No.
But I proposed legislation in the past that would change the state's income tax structure. And this is what we were talking about before. If you're a janitor in Oklahoma, there's a good chance you pay the same percentage of your income and income taxes like the starting guard from the Thunder. Now, I'm not going to say that the starting guard for the Thunder is doing anything wrong. I'm just saying we ought to be thinking about how to make sure that some of the folks who might be on the lower end of the spectrum pay a little less in income taxes. Because here's the reality. Most of those folks need that money to go buy things. They're going to continue to stimulate the economy. The starting guard for the Thunder, so share that money is going to sit in the bank and not do anybody any good. And so I'm not saying that he owes all that to the state or anything like that. I'm just saying the folks on the lower end probably need a little relief, and we should be able to give that to them.
Okay, let me hang on, because I know
I want to speak to that a little bit.
Tim and I have had this conversation so many times because I'm conservative Republican, and Tim is liberal, and Tim loves socialism and Cuba and stuff like that. So here's what I got to say to that. The starting guard for the Thunder, yes, he makes millions of dollars or whatever, but he also generates so much more revenue and economic growth through his occupation than that janitor does. So does that?
How many Thunder fans do you know want to go to the arena and go to a restroom with feces all over it? You want to do that?
See, come on, Monroe. You can't go there.
No, my point about that is that we all have a role to play, and I'm not begrudging the Thunder. Don't get me wrong. I got no problem with people making money.
You don't like the Thunder.
I do like the Thunder, actually.
I'm joking.
I'm a huge Thunder fan. I'm hopeful that they get their new arena so they'll stick around for another 25 years, whatever it was.
I understand what you're saying. The equal fair pay stuff,
but my point is not that the person on the top end should feel bad about being wealthy. My point is that the person on the lower end, if they had those resources, are just going to put them back into the economy. So we all are better off, and they get to be able to provide for themselves and they provide for themselves. So this is not like the as you put it, the socialism fairness stuff. This is just smart economics is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what he's saying. With what you're saying, this is all about tax burden. The tax burden on somebody who makes millions of dollars at 20% is far lower than the burden of 20% on somebody who's making $12 an hour or whatever. It's like a parking ticket. You think of a parking ticket. Everybody has to pay the same parking ticket, but only the real poor people are actually punished by that parking ticket because, aside from the point system, with driver's license, because a millionaire, $100 to a millionaire is nothing. $100 to somebody that's, you know, making $12 an hour, that's quite a bit of money. So I think the tax burden should be more fair across the board.
And I think that's
agree.
I think that's one of the areas where some of the folks on my side of the aisle at times have gotten the talking points wrong. I think the policy's been right. I think the talking points may have been wrong.
Yeah.
I was a political science and economics student at TU, and I'm not saying that makes me an economist, but I do remember, working on some projects. We talked about this concept of, macroeconomics and what it means for somebody on the lower end to have some money in their pocket, and what do they do with it? Typically, they go and they are consumers of things. They keep the economy rolling and going. The more money you and I make, there's a certain portion where it burns a hole in our pocket. But at some point, you start putting a lot more in the bank, right? And so it's sitting there. And I'm not saying that, we should raid your bank account. My point is just that the person on the lower end with the lower tax burden is going to spend that money in the economy, and they're going to be getting what they need. And that's really, at essence, what I'm talking about. It really just is a better macroeconomic way in which we could run.
I guess that makes sense, because the Thunder Guard that's making millions of dollars, he's probably not going to the Jiffy Lube or the Save a Lot down on the corner to spend his money. He's probably having it flown in from wherever, and so right. I get that. I concede that. I will have to ask this though, because you said something about this earlier, that people were unhappy that you voted a certain way. This is something that I ask all the time of every guest that we have on, and then we have to bring up some comments because these are so good.
Yeah. We got Lane's comment coming up.
Oh, hold on a second.
You can see him. But whenever you go to vote, like JJ Dossett, who I love, JJ Dossett, he lost to Dana Prieto, who I can't stand, but I've had him in the backyard and fundraised for him, but it was a big mistake, and I've said that. Anyway, JJ Dossett told me that
if you supported more Democrats, that probably wouldn't happen to you. I'm just kidding.
Wow, you're going to come at me like that? I mean,
shots fired.
No, he just threw hands. That's what he did. He threw hands.
I had to get you.
But no, JJ was more moderate, and Tim has told me this all the time. You're more moderate than you think you are, but he told me, he said, I have to vote this way because I got 123 emails from constituents saying they wanted this, and I got 113 that said they didn't want this, so I had to vote with my constituents. Is that how you do it? Because that's the way I see it. You're a tool. You're a tool of the. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's going to be some issues where you're going to have constituents that are really passionate about it, right? And I think you have to listen to that. You essentially are hired by them to go literally to go take their vote to the Capitol. But the reality is there's some issues where there's some splits. There are some nuances that you only know because you're in the building and that type of deal. And I think the highest thing that we owe to constituents is to make the very best decision that we can make with the information that we have. And so, if you're tallying, if you go by tallying up, well, what about the folks who are working? And this is not a criticism of JJ Dossett. I think JJ Dossett was an amazing public servant. Yeah. He still is. He's one of my favorite person in the legislature. And so this is not necessarily knocking that. I think we all have different ways in which we come at it, right? But you also got to consider if it's that close, what about the person working an hourly job who didn't have the time to call you or whatever? It's really being thoughtful about the district that you represent and what's in the best interest of the state of Oklahoma. I will say this, one of the things that has happened, there's some votes that are tough, right? And you kind of got to think about how you're going to come down on this deal. Some of them don't matter. We had this whole deal about bear tags one time or something like that. I was like, I have no idea what that is. So, but there's some guys that are passionate about it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I will say, I usually come down on things, I think about, and this is going to sound maybe really cheesy to you guys, but this is really true. I've talked to my grandfather being in the Air Force and being a pastor. Some of these things, it kind of comes down to faith and patriotism. Now, how I might interpret that might be a little different than somebody else. But you take all those things into account when you have tough votes or something like that. Sometimes you got to rely on what you know because you've been doing it for a while. Sometimes you rely on the people who reached out to you because they're passionate about it and they talk to you about how it impacts them. So yes and no's don't get me as much as if somebody calls me and say, this will impact me in this way.
Call you, for real, call you though.
email and say, this will hurt me in this way. That's hard. Like, that's better than the tally marks. And then if nothing else, like I said, you revert back to, maybe a little bit of faith, a little bit of patriotism, and figure out, you gotta go one way or the other. You figure out that way.
Yeah, and obviously your core beliefs, if it bucks up against one of those things,
right.
I feel like they've entrusted you with your own core beliefs. They try to know you as a candidate. So
I tell you, they haven't run me out of office yet. And I say the only thing that's been more popular than me on election day in House District 72 has been medical marijuana. Medical marijuana outperformed me back in 2018 by quite a bit. So
that's crazy.
As long as I'm not running against a joint, I'm probably okay.
Do you smoke marijuana?
I do not.
I don't either.
No, I don't. No, I mean,
I do from time to time, but
I voted
for medicinal purposes.
I did vote for it. Yeah, I did vote for it
too. I mean, I don't have a problem on the committee that actually regulates our medical marijuana laws in Oklahoma, but I don't have a problem with that. I have a lot of friends who smoke. I mean, a lot of anxiety, depression. I mean, there is certainly the news about, foreign governments and people growing illegally. Those are true, and we got to make sure we eradicate that kind of stuff. But the fact is, there's a lot of people who've been on some narcotics for a long time that are far more damaging than medical marijuana, who now are able to do that, relieves pain, anxiety, stress, those types of things. I think that is real. The science is there. So like, I've never had a problem with it. I'm glad we have medical marijuana. I think we just got to be really smart about how we make sure that everybody gets the help they need.
Yeah. I mean, I have a story related to that where I was in pain management. I have an autoimmune disease called ankylosing spondylitis, and I was on opiates for a long time. I went to a pain doctor every month, and I had to take drug tests every month. Yep. Well, whenever they passed medical marijuana, I'd talk to them. I'm like, I'd like to try this because I don't know if it'll work or not, because I have had to take drug tests this whole time. And they're like, either you choose that or we kick you off if you do that. If you fail your drug test, that's it. And I'm like, this is so messed up. This isn't about healthcare at all. This is, this is something entirely different when that's your mentality as a doctor. Doesn't matter. I don't know. That's weird. So yeah, I bet that was crazy at the beginning when it was first passed. Would you say things were pretty hectic around that subject, trying to get everything in place?
For sure. I mean, one of the problems was, I think a lot of folks at the Capitol didn't think that it would pass on the ballot. And so we really didn't do a lot of regulation before it did. So it passes. It's like, oh my goodness, what do we do about this? Right. And we still are in the process of cleaning things up right now. I think we're getting closer and closer to getting there. But I mean, we kind of got caught unprepared. And I think this has happened a couple times. Like, I'll say the one thing that I appreciate so much about the Oklahoma electorate is while if you put a DNR by it, this is as red of a state as you're going to find in the country. But we've seen a number of times when you put issues on the ballot that seem like they're, left of center issues, they usually do pretty well. We still have that populism about the state that I think sets us apart on things like criminal justice reform. Criminal justice reform is now a very popular issue in Oklahoma.
It is with me. It is with, I know you know about me, Monroe. With me.
No. My point is, it wasn't before. It is now. I'm saying, like, it is something we all have embraced now.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Medical marijuana is the same way. I mean, Medicaid expansion, which is a much closer vote than those other two. But the fact is that, 10 years before that, talking about Obamacare, it was a non-starter. But when we think about the folks who could have access to health care, mental health care, what it does to the state budget, if you just put the policy out there, Oklahomans have had a track record of making really good decisions if you take the politics out of it. It was my point. So for me, I think, that is one really interesting thing and unique thing about this state is that if there's three issues right there that would have never, ever made progress at the Capitol because of partisanship, that when you put it in front of the voters, they all passed.
Here, I don't mean to cut you off, Tim, but here's two things. First of all, your microphone makes your left arm look really huge, and I know it's not. I mean, I've sat next to you. It's not that big.
He's got them guns. I was thinking that earlier, Ron.
Yeah,
it's funny you said that.
I'm like this right here. I'm like, but here's the thing. I've been getting beat up on the right side of the aisle because this is just me, and I've been wrong 3 times. I've been married 3 times. It just happens to me. When you're a conservative Republican, that you're like freedom, America, civil liberties, you're not going to stick a vaccine in my arm. You're not going to make me wear a mask. You're not going to tell me what I can put in my body and what I can't. You're not going to tell me that I can't drive a tank down the street. I believe in that. But then they want to tell a woman that she can't make a choice about her own body. I can't wrap my brain around that, for one.
I mean, I can't either.
But then I'm ostracized. I'm like, why? What is your take on that?
Here's the reality about a lot of the issues that are very divisive. And I learned this being in the legislature probably more than anywhere else, right? When I got elected, I'll be honest, it was a really tense time. Like I mentioned, we were there year round. We were fighting over these votes. I really thought in my head that a lot of my Republican colleagues were just liars and, full of it and, didn't want to do what was right for the state. Like I thought that, right? It took me getting to know people and knowing that the only people who know what it's like to leave your house on Monday morning, leave your family, leave the work that you have, all that kind of stuff to go serve in Oklahoma City and do that. And sometimes, get the, what kicked out of you and all that kind of stuff and come home, people are mad at you, or the 100 other people on this floor, Democrat or Republican, like they're the only ones who understand what that's like. And so when you get to know them a little bit, you get to understand that we have different perspectives on stuff. And we may have a passionate debate and almost a knockout, drag out fight on a vote that we disagree on. The very next vote might be something that all of us 100% agree on. So you got to move past it a little bit. And so one of the things I think is the problem, and I actually talked to a number of my Republican colleagues more than I talked to anybody outside of session. So like the lesson there is like I've forged friendships with people who I disagree with on all of the controversial issues, right? Those are 15% at tops what we work on, right? So like, I learned that 85% of the stuff we agree on, and the 15 that we don't agree on, it's not because necessarily they're bad people. We just disagree on it. The problem that we have in this country, I think, and certainly in this city, is whatever those divisive issues are, we spend zero time talking about the people who disagree with us. And so that's the problem we have. And so, why do you get vilified for? Because nobody's going to have a conversation about that. But if they did, we'd be a lot better off. I will say that's one great thing about, running for mayor, different from the legislature in a lot of ways, is that I went to spoke to a conservative group of women just the other day, and we talked about everything from, reparations to everything else. And, my message to them was what I just said. It's like, look, we have to resolve these things together. We all live in this community together. And if we live together, you need to talk to people who disagree with you, because that's the only pathway forward. And I think that's really the crux of all these divisive issues. That's what I would say about all of them. It matters what I think about it, but it also matters what people think about it after you talk to somebody on the other side of that issue and get to know them and get to know their humanity. I think that makes us all a little bit better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And really, that's what me and Ron are trying to do here with the show, is get these people that
you guys disagree. Need to change your intro then. That's what I think I said a little different than you guys said at the top of this thing.
No, our intro is perfect, Monroe.
So that we actually created that about 10 minutes before our show 2 days ago.
Yeah.
We were actually going to redo it today, but some things got hanky, so we left it in there as is. We were going to make one specific for you because we were excited.
That may have been a bullet. I'm glad I dodged. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, I was going to have a Cowboys flag behind me. I was going to be.
I'd have been okay as long as it wasn't a 49ers flag behind you.
Let's do some comments, Tim, if you don't.
Yeah, care. So I'm going to go with Jennifer's comment here. This speaks to kind of criminal justice reform. Also, thank you for serving. I know you're a good man, but here's my criticism. You should have read Julius Jones' case files instead of getting on the free Julius bandwagon. In so doing, you compromise public safety. I work in public safety, and the free bandwagon freaked out a lot of Tulsans and harmed the victim's family. What What would you say
Yeah,
about
no,
that?
I'm glad that she asked that question. I'll first say, like, look, I mentioned before, my dad's a police officer. My uncle's still a police officer in Dallas, actually. And I think that public safety is number one issue. Really, the issue at the hand at the time was, should Julius Jones be put to death? And I just don't think that the state should be putting anybody to death, right? Like, I mean, that is really the crux of it for me. I'm just anti-death penalty. Always have been, always
Fair
will
enough.
be. I think the tough thing is that somebody does something to somebody in my family, emotionally, I'd want to kill them too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the reason why they don't put those things in the hands of folks in the family. So, I mean, like, you look, victimized.
But you don't think the state should be doing that?
I don't think the state should be doing that. Look, I mean, I think that, and that's just how I feel. So I mean, I'm just not a believer in the death penalty. There's plenty of people who disagree with me. Honestly, there's plenty of Republicans who agree with me right now. There's several Republican representatives that are working on behalf of, oh my goodness, I can't believe I just blanked on his name.
I know.
My goodness, I can't, but there's a number of them working right now to end the death penalty. And so, like, I think, again, this is one of those things that are really tough. But if folks want to know why I felt the way that I did about Julius Jones, or really anybody on death row, I don't take any pleasure, and that, not saying that anybody else does, for the record. That's not, I don't want to mischaracterize what the question was, but Jennifer, just so you know, that's where that comes from for me. I'm just not a believer in the death penalty. I know it's part of the state constitution, but my advocacy has always been based on my aversion to the death penalty.
Can I answer her question?
Yeah, go for it, Ron.
I may run for representative one day too. I believe in the death penalty for heinous crimes. And I know about Julius Jones, but I do believe that if we just arrest these people and put them in jail for life sentences and take care of them for the rest of their lives, that doesn't send a message to the rest of society that says we aren't going to tolerate this. I understand that we can't go out as vigilantes and just kill everybody that kills one of our family members, but I do believe that we have to set a standard as a society that says, no, we're not going to kill each other. And if you do kill somebody, this is what happens.
Yeah.
So that's my piece on it.
I feel like the death penalty should be for just the smallest cases where there's just absolutely no doubt that this person committed the crime.
And I get that. Yeah. I mean, look, I was actually born and raised in Texas, and I think
my gosh.
I think Texas executes more people than anybody in the country.
They do. How did you come out of Texas not believing in the death penalty? I mean, come on.
Well, this is another reason why, and so I will say, like, this is one of those things where, how I may practice and think about my faith may be different from somebody else. And like, the death penalty is just one of those issues for me, right? And like, you could say, well, what about all these other issues? And I would say, like, yeah, maybe there's not full consistency there in how I think about it, but the death penalty is one, because I think about putting myself in the position of a family who's been victimized by somebody. And you ask me, would I want that to happen to somebody else? My answer would be absolutely, right? Like, I wish I was better in my journey, but I would be like, yeah, I'm not one of those people be like, I forgive them off top. I would like to be that, but I'm not. However, that's the reason why nobody would give me that particular decision. So I think about, my faith, and I don't feel like we should be doing that. Now, I get the state's constitution. I get people disagree with me, and I don't necessarily begrudge them for that. I just see it a little bit differently. That's all.
And that's another thing is, he was convicted by a jury of his peers, and that is the state's constitution. But then you have to, in the back of your mind, think these are 12 people that listen to 2 prosecutors.
Yeah.
Which one had the best case?
That's
there's always that little thing like, was he really though? I don't know.
I mean, and I think the bottom line is, we have a criminal justice system that's not perfect, and I'm not saying, I'm not judging any particular case, but it is the system that we have, and it's the system that we have to adhere to, because we have to have order in our communities. Right. It's the only thing that keeps us safe. I just have a hard stop at the death penalty is how it turns out. But I mean, there's been a lot of times where people have had convictions overturned on appeals and those types of things. And I think it's a healthy part of our system, but I just can't bring myself, even though,
Be careful.
you gave me a video where it's like, this person absolutely did this, part of me might be inclined. It's just that my hard stop is I still think the state should be putting people to death.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. That's a legitimate belief, and I think people should respect that.
And I appreciate you being honest with us and telling us that. I do. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, because I've seen so many instances personally of people wrongfully accused, and then and I'm not speaking to Julius Jones specifically. I don't know enough about it, but it just, man, how bad would that be to put somebody to death who then you find out later it wasn't that person? I mean,
and the reality is there's a number of people who have who have gone down that road who didn't have folks advocating for them one way or the other, right? And so, like, we still have, in my opinion, a structural problem where people are being put to death. And there was no doubt, there was a guy who got put to death who killed, I think, a prison worker or something like that, very brutally. I think he died right after Julius was supposed to be killed, or maybe right before. It was a no doubter, right? And if you look at that case, you're like, no doubt this guy's already in prison. He needs to be put to death. And so those are hard. And so, like, just in my heart of hearts, I'm just like, I don't know what you do with somebody like that. You're killing people in prison also, but just have this hard stop, because I still think that's our role at the state.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. Now, as far as Tulsa goes, is there anything like specific about the way the city is going that kind of drew you to it? And you're like, you know what, I can do something about that. There's
yeah. I mean, I think, sorry guys, I have my standing desk. I got tired of standing up.
No, you're good.
You're one of those fit. You're one of those fit guys that you have to like stand up.
No. Well, no, it's not the thing. It's like, man, you work 16 hours a day. You got to be able to stand up and sit down and everything else.
Yes.
Stiff. I just turned 40, guys. Okay. When you get to be 40 like me, I know neither one of you know what it's like to be 40. But when you get to be 40, you gotta stretch your muscles out there.
I'm not going to vote for you.
Yeah,
I want one of those desks
because I can't vote for you. But I'm just saying.
Yeah. My wife is an IT director, and they try to get those desks because it's terrible for your circulation.
Yeah, it's good. So on the Tulsa side, I think there's a couple things. Like, we homelessness in this community has gotten worse over the years, and I actually, people kind of, I think, sometimes side-eye me when I say we can end homelessness. I actually think that we can, and I'm happy to talk at length about how. I think if you go to, I don't think I know this. If you go to, 90% of the businesses in our community and you ask them their number one issue, they're going to say they can't find people to work, which is weird because unemployment is so low, right? But we have a skills gap right now. I think a mayor can be very influential in doing something about that. If you ask people in this community, we were just talking about public safety. Do they feel like Tulsa's safer or less safe? Most of them are going to say they feel less safe in this community. I think we can be the safest big city in the country. And so this is less about a criticism of who's there now, but it's more about holding yourself accountable to getting outcomes. Spending money it's an important part of solutions, but it is not the solution. The question is anybody better off because you spent that money? And I think that, for me, is the thing that I would go into the mayor's office thinking about every day is, are we getting better outcomes for people? Don't tell me if we found a bed for somebody to sleep for a day, were we able to meet the needs that they have to get them in a place where they're off the streets, right? Tonight, let's see, it's Tuesday night. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,300 people at minimum will be sleeping on the streets and in alleyways in Tulsa, Oklahoma tonight. I don't think that's something that we should ever get used to. That's not something we should ever kind of minimize. We got to find ways in which we can coordinate services good enough. And then make sure once we have services coordinated good enough, we got to have some enforcement. We got to get people off the street. There's just down from my office here, there is an intersection that if you're not careful, you will hit somebody because sometimes they're in the street. So it's not safe for the people who are out on the streets. It's not safe for the people on the road. We can do much better in a community that's as giving as we are. And we're going to absolutely do that. And so that's one of those big issues along with affordable housing. I think we can.
So do you have, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
sure.
I worked for IMSA years ago, and I don't want to seem morbid here, but my favorite place to work in IMSA was 11th and Utica. That was my post. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, on night shift because that was the most violent area. That's where the action happened, was 11th and Utica North. You were going to get a stabbing, a shooting. We were the second busiest system of EMS calls in the nation, second to King County in Seattle, Washington, because we had so many calls. Yeah. So do you have a plan to, I mean, they filmed the first 48 here. That's not something that I think is like, that's a great thing. There's a reason that happens. And I'm not saying it's your fault. It's all of our faults because
I've told people this, whether we're talking about education or public safety or whatever, we at some point got comfortable with things happening and turning a blind eye to them.
It became normalcy. It became normal.
That's what I was going to say. The thing that you're talking about, the reality is most of those things probably never made the news. So we just got so used to them. That's not even click worthy anymore, that kind of stuff happens.
Right.
And I think there's a structural issue there, right? There's this long-term problem that we have. We in Tulsa, I give Mayor Bynum a lot of credit for this, actually. He helped get established what are called the Tulsa Equality Indicators. So it's a bunch of data that shows how equal is Tulsa as a community, right? Access to services, education, economic development, all these things. And I think Tulsa scores. So if you think about Tulsa's taking a test, 100 means you have perfect equality in your community. I think Tulsa's at like a 41 or 42 or something like that. Now, I'm not saying that, that's anybody's fault, as we said, but I'm saying when you have that much inequality in a community, well, poverty is going to creep up. Well, poverty is going to creep up, all these other things are going to creep up. That does not mean poor people are bad people, but it does mean when you have saturation in pockets of those issues, you're going to have all the social issues that come with them oftentimes, right? You're going to have folks who, may get addicted to drugs. Why? Because they didn't have the resources to get the treatment they needed to not be addicted to drugs, right? Like there's a lot of people who we all know who have tried things in their life. Some people get hooked on them and they can't let them go and they don't get help. And a lot of those folks are probably some of the folks, Ron, that you were going to clean up after they had been stabbed and gotten the fights and all that kind of stuff at 11th and Utica. And so I do think as we think about the quality of life issue, we have to do a better job at revitalizing neighborhoods, making sure that we can put families on a pathway to economic mobility. One of the reasons why I brought up the workforce issue and the talent gap is not because it's the sexiest issue in the world, but because if we can get people on a pathway to economic mobility, there will be less crime at 11th and Utica. I guarantee you, right?
You guarantee that.
Absolutely.
Oh,
for sure.
100%. 1,000%. Like, and it doesn't mean that everybody's a millionaire, but you give people a pathway for a life and a job and a safe community and that kind of stuff. Like, it's gonna change. It's gonna fundamentally change the way crime goes and everything else. If you look at where you have the less crime in a community, what do you know about that community? What kind of money those people make?
Yeah.
So you have a plan to do that though?
Absolutely. I believe, and this is a long-term plan, right? So this is when I talk about closing the skills gap, right? I've spent a period of my career, and a lot of people don't know this, but I worked for Career Tech for a period of time. And I had about $5 million a year that I invested in just training people for jobs that were open right now, right? So they weren't just blindly training and then like maybe going to apply for a job. They worked for a company got a new line of business, or company got some new employees need to be trained on a machine. I paid for those people to get trained with those state resources. And I guarantee you, those people are better off today than they were before they got that training. I think this about homelessness. I think this about the people who you are 11th Street on. I bet if we talked to you guys who worked at IMSA and asked you, why do you think this is a problem? You'd probably give us 10 reasons why you think, because you're seeing it every day, right? If we did a better job at addressing those issues, we would not have to worry about the outcomes that we were seeing there at 11th and Utica. I think it was Desmond Tutu that said something like, better than, pulling people out of a river or something like that. Let's make sure that they don't fall in, right? And so I think that's part of the deal. It is a longer term deal, but it is the essence of what we have to do. It's not an overnight deal, but it's a commitment to it. We got to get rid of, thinking about what can go on a bumper sticker and thinking about how we're going to get better outcomes for people. And that's just my commitment that I have as a mayor.
I love that. I do. I love that.
Yeah, because with a decent paying job, there's pride that comes along with that. Pride is a combatant to hopelessness, which I think poverty breeds, and that leads to all kinds of drug addiction. So absolutely, I think, and Dana Prieto actually may be an ally here with the workforce stuff. I know he's real big into workforce.
Can't stand Dana Prieto.
Yeah, I mean, he's there and got to work with him.
There's times where even if we don't like people, we can find ways to work with them, Ron. You know what I mean?
I know. I mean, he's on my team, but I can't. I mean, the dude. Oh my gosh. I was Monroe. Monroe. I was sitting in jail, and I know that you probably know this, but I went to jail a few months ago. Did you know that?
Why'd you laugh about that?
Yeah, Tim. Why are you laughing?
Because this story.
I'm aware. I'm aware you spent some time in juvie.
Yeah, I went to jail for like 5 days, had an ankle monitor on for 3 months, and then the charges were dismissed because they were bullshit to begin with. But anyway, Dana Prieto laughed at me. He's like, "How could Ron run the GOP if he's in jail?" It's an emotional. It's a me thing. But anyway,
it's a trigger. It's a trigger.
Yeah. So, but Dana, I love you. I wish you well. Anyway.
The one thing I will say, I think this is a point that I think we could all learn from. And I know, we sometimes get carried away in this game of politics, right? And we can vilify people who disagree with us and that type of stuff. And then real shit will happen. And we see what it's like to be on the other side. So I think it's like that's the reason why I saw that comment about them boys. Good Lord. That's why I've always been somebody who, I'll dish it out. Never personal really, but I also take a whole bunch of it. I don't block people or anything like that, but I do think we all have to get a level of decency because we run into some situations that are really unfortunate, and it's never fun when people, are trying to pop bottles on our misfortune. And I think it's just something we could all learn from, set better examples. So I just have to, give that voice because I try to do that. And when I don't, people can call me on it. I know there's been colleagues of mine in the legislature that have been on the wrong side of the law for different reasons. And I've never, ever once taken any joy or pleasure in that. I've never once called them out for it or anything like that, because folks find themselves in a bad place. And just because I disagree with you on some level doesn't mean that I want to see you fall.
Life
if I'm going to battle you in full strength, I don't want to see you when you're down. I want you to get up off the mat, and we'll have this debate then.
Life happens to all of us.
That's right. Really does. I'll let you fast too, man.
Oh yeah.
One of the bills that I passed with John Nichols and actually Greg Treat. This is really funny because I thought at the time I was like, man, Kevin Stitt signed a Monroe Nichols and Greg Treat bill. So that means that I think Greg Treat at the time was probably the Republican he hated the most. I always feel like I'm probably on the governor's crap list, but I think I think we have a relationship where I'm sure he was like, he probably marked my name off the deal. But the thing was though, we did something last year without a lot of fanfare, Democrats, Republicans, and we gave police officers a lot more discretion in misdemeanor warrants. Currently, I guess until November 1st, you get pulled over and you have a misdemeanor warrant hanging out there. It could be from a failure to pay or failure to appear, something like that, and you're going to jail. Like there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. But now, like a police officer can issue you a warning and not take you to jail because you couldn't pay for a bill.
Nice.
And I think you think about how many people are sitting in jails right now because they couldn't pay something. This was one of the things you guys asked me how I make decisions. Last December, I think, there was a barber at the barbershop I go to, and he had this thing happen. He had the same thing. He got pulled over. He had a misdemeanor warrant. I think it was in Rogers County, if I'm not mistaken. And he sat in jail up until I think Christmas Eve, maybe. So that means he couldn't work. He couldn't buy Christmas gifts for his kids. His kids didn't know if he was going to be there for Christmas. And we do that for no reason. Like it cost us more money to put him in jail. So we literally just ran up our own tab a little bit. And so I just think that hey, we got to find these ways in which we keep people out of the system that don't belong there, and then make sure that when things do go wrong, we handle things pretty quickly, expeditiously. So
well, I let me ask: can the mayor change things like policies with bail and the way that the prisons work, like David L. Moss, for example. Like, is there any of changes that you can effectuate there?
So I mean, you could probably use some influence, but the county runs the jail, and and I don't, I've actually, this is one of those, and I'm only going to mention this. I'm going to answer your question more directly. I think I probably already answered it, but one of the challenges we have in the homelessness issue is, and I was talking to some folks about this the other day, there are homeless folks who get taken to jail. Some of them may be on some sort of a medication or something like that. And they discharge them because they don't want to take care of them. And they have, a medical episode right out front. So the day center has to come and get it. I mean, like there's not enough coordination around that kind of stuff, even there. But yeah, I mean, the city we probably can help effectuate change, but the county really makes the final decision on what goes on at the jail.
Yeah, well, I asked because I ran into a problem, and earlier I laughed because Ron and I experienced his stint in jail like together, because for the entire time he was in there, I am on the phone trying to figure out how to contact somebody because I couldn't get a hold of him, right? I couldn't call the jail to say, who do I need to call? Give me a number. And he couldn't reach out to my phone. So there was a problem where I feel like if somebody is allowed to, if you've just gone to jail, if somebody is allowed to call in to talk directly to you once you've first been admitted over the, for the first 3 days or whatever, maybe that's something we can do as a city, or is that something we have to legislate? Like, because that was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, I bet that's something that we could fix. I mean, you'll be surprised how many times an idea starts from somebody's experience. Almost every time they end up getting something changed, right? I think the one thing I will say is that there's plenty of things I would change about the jail, by the way, if I could. But there's also
me too.
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it alone.
Yeah.
But it also is a tough place for the people that work there. I do think we have to come up with ways that makes that not just a horrible experience. Because when you go to jail, you've not been convicted of anything yet.
Right.
Every time when I'm in Oklahoma City, there's so many people, and I know it happens here too, but I feel like the Oklahoma County jail's got to be the scariest place where people die all the time. And I think about how many of those people died without being convicted of a crime. So,
right.
There can't be anything more un-American than not being convicted of anything and then dying in jail.
Right.
And so like some of it is substance abuse. I know there's a lot of reasons why, but if we don't have the services necessary to take care of people who might be, drug addicted or something like that, if we're holding them there that long, well, they don't need to be in jail. They need to be somewhere else because there's no reason they should be dying in jail for whatever the cause is. And we got to do a better job there. It's just, it breaks me down when I think about how many folks lose their life in county jail, and that should never happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I appreciate that. And maybe that's something you can think about when you get in there, because it really was a big pain in the rear. He couldn't call me. I couldn't figure it out. We ended up getting him out, but it was 2
or 3 days before I even spoke to you, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess he had been calling me, but for some reason my phone just it wouldn't take the call.
Gentlemen, I want to venture into something a little bit more cheery. Let's pull up Lane Brown's comment
from earlier. I've been waiting for that. It's been on my mind. We ask everybody. Lane asks every guest that we've had on the show.
Do you know who Lane Brown is, Mr. Nichols?
I don't know that I do. Lane, do we know each other?
So he asked, do you believe in aliens?
Absolutely.
No, okay. I love that. Everybody else has had a long,
unequivocally,
boom. That's okay. There you go, Lane.
Look, I mean, to not think there's aliens is like the most arrogant thing ever. Like we're the only thing. And come on, man. The question is, do aliens look like us? Look like something else? I mean, is it like they're in the Stone Age now? I mean, or are they far more advanced? Like
how egotistical are you that you think we're the only things?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm like, who believes that? Come on, man.
Oh yeah. And I have another question here. This isn't as cheery necessarily, but if elected mayor, will you change ethics ordinance so city council isn't policing themselves? Well, first of all, can you? And second of all, would you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the city council has to do that. I mean, they have to vote on
it.
I don't know. Yeah, I actually do not fully familiar with the ethics rules that the council has. I mean, I know at the state, our ethics rules are largely about who can give us money and, what kind of gifts we can accept to make sure we're reporting things. I really think, and so I'll talk about where I am right now. I'm not necessarily the city council, so I'm sorry, Jennifer, for not giving me a better answer. We'll certainly look into that. I mean, I think as an elected official, you should always, be held highly accountable for things and act in an ethical manner. I think the thing that I wish we could do, and I look for research, if anybody's done this anywhere in the country, I think we should be punished for knowingly lying on the House floor. If you go give a deposition in a court case, or you sit on if you're sworn in a court of law and you knowingly lie, you get charged with perjury.
Boom.
We make laws about people's lives, and people knowingly lie on the House floor all the time, and there's no punishment for it. And I think that's something that has to change. Now, I'm not saying if you say something that happened not to be true, because sometimes we're projecting what we think is going to happen if we change something. But when you lie about a material fact that you know about, and we're talking about there's 4 million people who live in this state, and you're going to pass something that's going to impact all their lives, there should be punishment for that. And I think our ethics laws actually are pretty narrow, because they only speak to dollars and cents. They do not speak to what I would consider to be how your ethical behavior is in your official job duty. So
let me ask this, because I watched we had a show about it last night, but Grant Miller, the Tulsa city councilor, he had 17 ethics complaints filed against him. 15 of them were anonymously filed, and he was cleared of 15 of the 17. But doesn't that tie up taxpayer? I mean, how do you think you should find somebody accountable if they're just filing frivolous ethics complaints just to hold shit up?
I don't know enough about Counselor Miller's situation, so I can't speak specific to it. But what I will say is that I think there's a lot of things that we do that cost us more than it should. We were just in special session for 2 days, costing you about $35,000 a day, and we didn't do anything, right? Ooh. So
thank you.
There's that thing. But I do think that our system only works if elected officials behave well and are held accountable. And this is not a criticism of Grant Miller or anybody else, but I do think there has to be some accountability to how people act and how people behave. I really wish that those of us in elected office could have better relationships, that we don't have to fight each other through ethics complaints. But the real tragedy is that you got folks who can't get along, and my guess is I don't know enough about the situation, so I'm gonna tell you that. My guess is there's probably some back and forth there. I don't think that happens to anybody just out of the blue, and so that is my guess. I mean, There's a line in John F. Kennedy's inauguration, and he's talking about foreign dictators, I think. And he said, I guess they said those who sought power by riding the back of a tiger ended up inside, type of a thing, right? So it's, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes sometimes, man. This is all.
Representative Nichols, we know that you're smart. You don't have to keep quoting people.
That wasn't my line. That's somebody else's. That was plagiarism, man. This
is what I'm talking about, Tim. This is why we do this show. I love it.
Casey says, "What's up?" and that apparently he likes you. So I just wanted to give that shout out.
And Casey is a staunch conservative. From Lawton, Oklahoma. He is very.
I'm sad it took 52 minutes for somebody to like me.
No, Jennifer liked you earlier. She's like,
yeah.
No, I'm glad Casey came through, man. Because my goodness, I had
Lane. Lane's never.
Yeah, well, here's Lane. He's been here. 2027. I'm going to be coming for the funniest title in the legislature. Okay,
Lane.
Yeah, Lane. What's that?
You're right. He's running. Lane's running for election.
No, so he is still 17 at the moment, but this cat is. I mean, this guy is like full force. He's going right into politics. He's going to do something. So,
and
sharp kid. And
we're training him, Monroe. So
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're like, don't do as we do.
Yeah, that's right. Do as I say, not as I do, type of a thing.
Right. It's like it's already too late for us, Lane. So watch what we do and kind of skirt around that a little bit.
Well, Lane, if you learned anything, Ron has told you to stay away from the county jail.
Yes. He was full bore involved in that. I promise you that.
Oh man. No, it was
it's it's one of those things that, like I said, it catches up with it happens all. I gotta say, I think about all the things in my lifetime, mistakes you make and that kind of stuff, and how many of those things could have gone the other way if you would have been in a different place or whatever the case may be. And what I hate about it oftentimes is folks who end up there. Like I said, you deal with the emotional impact of just going through that alone. If nobody knew about it, the emotional impact you have by yourself, whether guilty, not guilty, whatever the case may be. But it is difficult, and I hate it that sometimes people take pleasure in it, and I just think it's a horrible thing. It's part of what we do. If I get arrested, there's gonna be so many people popping bottles and very excited.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And I hate that. I hate that about how we behave sometimes. And I always say I got to be better about it as well. And so I don't know. I just hate the fact that
this is why I told you about Jacob Rosencrantz, because people came at him because he went through a bad divorce or something, and somebody filed a PO on him. Who hasn't had a PO filed on them?
Well, I haven't.
Whatever, Monroe. But anyway, it was dismissed.
Yeah,
it was dismissed, and I'm like, why are you even bringing this up? There was no evidence.
Well, he's actually with the lady that he went through that with. Like sometimes,
life happens.
Yeah, things happen, and I really hate that, right? Like it sucks because there's some people who know the outcome of something, and they still try to rip you and tear you down, and it really sucks. Again, I think it's one of those things, and I hope that you all, because you all are, you have this show and you have the opportunity to put people on blast who makes mistakes and that kind of stuff. I hope that you all are really responsible.
Absolutely.
When that kind of stuff happens, because it's good to bring down the temperature at times, like because we're all people, that type of stuff, and so I just I appreciate the fact that it seems like you guys are. You really try to make sure we take the personal beef out of it and just talk.
We try to, as an example, Dana Prieto. I know he's in workforce, and I know that if you've got something in Tulsa that, he's probably going to be a guy that's going to be on your side for stuff like that. I know he's working with the schools there, and Dana and I, we don't agree on a lot. We argue through text, but he's in a position to change stuff, so it is what it is, and. I don't hate anybody. I mean,
the unfortunate thing about Dana is Dana and I probably agree more than anybody else in the world on stuff. But
probably agree more than him and I.
But he chose the establishment over the grassroots and this and that, and that's fine. But that's his business. But then to turn on me, anyway.
This is one of those games, though. I mean, politics is weird. Somebody told me a long time ago, they gave me the most important advice I think they ever gave me is they said, there's going to be some people who will be against you that you thought would always be with you, and there'll be some people with you that you never thought would be with you, and that's just the nature of it's the nature of the deal. If you focus on doing good work, it all comes out in the wash. You know what I mean? And I don't know Dana very well or anything like that or anybody, but I think that's just the thing. If you keep your head down, you keep doing the right thing, how other people behave, how other people move, you ain't got to worry about that. It's just how it goes. You got to keep your head up, keep moving. So
you can only control yourself.
That's
what everybody else does is, it is what it is.
Tim, I know we're coming up on an hour, but I have one more question, and if you can stay on for a little bit, that's fine, Monroe. But I got one more. This is very important to me. We have people like Representative McDougal. Is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Chris Banning brought in what was the
David
guy's
Barton.
name? David Barton to the Common Education Committee to do an interim study about Christianity and the founding documents.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know about this?
I'm not aware of the interim study they did.
So, my question to you, because Ryan Walters was there, and I'm a big supporter of Ryan Walters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question to you is, are you going to be a proponent for changing school boards elections to the general, or keeping them where they're at, so that we can keep religion, in my opinion, out of schools, public schools?
Yeah, I mean, I think the school board elections are fine where they're at, personally.
Tell me why. Tell me why, though.
So yeah, I mean, I wish more people engage in those school board races, but I do think that one of the most important things we do is educate kids, and one of the least important elections on any given November day is going to be a school board election. Nobody's going to pay attention to it at all, and I think that's a real tragedy. People straight party, or if it's nonpartisan, it's just going to be people showing up, and they're not going to pay attention to that. I think that I think people should be more engaged in what's happening in education. I absolutely do. I think that it takes too few votes to get elected to the school board. But I think when we move elections around like we oftentimes do, I think it's very confusing to people. I think folks who want to move different elections, there's always a reason why. There's some hidden agenda or whatever the case may be. And I think keeping things as they are is just fine. I don't think it's broke. I think the broken thing is people have to engage. And if you are too lazy to go be part of the process, the people who you care about lose out. And that's a hard lesson to learn. But I'll tell you, as a Democrat in Oklahoma, it's a lesson that I'm pretty accustomed to learning a little bit.
Do you know Alina Ashley?
I mean, I've met her a couple times. I don't know her well.
Do you know how many votes she won?
I have no clue. I mean, not very many is my guess.
556 votes to 430.
Okay. So I'm glad you brought this up, right? So you're telling me that if she was on the November ballot and 30,000 people voted for her, do you think 30,000 people would know about Alina Ashley?
Yes, I do.
That's, I mean, maybe so. So the best way to try, the best test for this is to go around Tulsa, Oklahoma City, anywhere in Oklahoma, ask who the president of the United States is. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Then ask them, who's your state representative? Who's your state senator? Who's your county commissioner?
Right.
Nobody would know. Now, I'm not saying all those votes should change. I'm just saying, like, people, just because there's bigger numbers there, they're going to vote for it, but they're not going to internalize what's going on in that election. I do think that school board races have probably gotten a little too expensive. They've gotten a little too partisan. I do very much believe in the separation of church and state. I don't think that
I do too.
And I don't think that changing the election in November is going to have a measurable impact on that. I think people have to understand and stop being lazy, participate in the process, and get out there and vote for school board members, vote for city council members, vote for mayors, vote for whatever is out there. Because if you don't, we end up 50th in everything. And that is really how we got to 50th in everything.
I agree with what you said.
Republican in the legislature. I love to blame all these people. The fact is, we are where we are right now because people don't participate in the process, and that's the bottom line.
I mean, you know what? I appreciate your answer, because usually people, their response is, well, we don't want dark money in elections, and that's why we don't want to move it. And to me, that's like, look, if somebody wants to affect an election, it's not going to matter when it takes place. You know what I mean? They're going to pump money into it no matter what. But, so I appreciate what you're saying. And, I do agree with you, on your premise that people just need to be more engaged. And that's true.
Honestly, and I want to make something clear. When I talk about people being lazy, I'm not talking about actively being lazy, right? I'm talking about people not spending the time to learn what's going on in schools until there's an emergency. Because when there's an emergency, we all have this sense of urgency. So this,
gotta do something.
Let's be all the time, because the reality is there's a lot of people out there who we talked about earlier who may be working hourly, maybe don't have time to show up on election day and all this kind of stuff. But we get to this place all the time because those of us who don't have any barriers and that kind of stuff, sometimes we decide that it's not important to show up for that election or whatever, and we sit it out. And, honestly, I've seen some interesting polling, right? Because this is a really complicated set of issues, right? I did see some polling recently that a lot of people don't vote because they don't think their vote matters. And I think that's another
sad.
question we've gotten to. Like, they just don't think it makes a difference, right? And you know, so honestly, Ron, to your initial question, if people really understood in an election that only you can win with 500 votes, that their neighborhood could swing an election, school board races might actually get people believing that they can do stuff again.
I know.
Right.
I know.
So, like, I do think there's a certain level of, you know, folks being a little, on the, maybe I shouldn't say, I've said lazy a number of times, and maybe it's just
Complacent.
There's some complacency around it, right? And I think we think that these institutions are just going to get better because it's school or because it's this. No, they get better with, you being active. They get better with you being engaged. And I understand there are barriers to it, but at the end of the day, moving an election is not going to solve that. What's going to solve that is people making a decision that, as hard as it is to participate in this process,
there's a lot of issues with, when parents, schools say that, we want parents to be, active and engaged and stuff. But man, when you do it, when you actually show up and try to offer your thoughts, they don't like it. They really don't. And I actually see it a lot with like parallels between the education and the schools and police departments, where their role is kind of self-perpetuating, where they gotta, they're there to protect the teachers and the institution itself. And so if something goes wrong, instead of saying, yeah, you know what, we kind of screwed up, they go into like cover-up mode.
Yeah, one of the reasons why, though, I think that is because the way in which we have come about how we kind of come with the retribution side of it, right? Like the punishment side of it. People are too afraid of the punishment. Oftentimes they're afraid to admit that we got something wrong, what that might mean for funding, whatever the case may be. I've always said that if something's not working, if something's not working, let us know it's not working, because we may be wasting money, right? Like, it doesn't mean that it's a bad teacher, it's bad anything. It's mean something's not working, and who knows best than teachers if something's not working, right? How can we get better outcomes? I think that, and I don't have the perfect solution to this, but I believe that there's something structurally wrong when most of the education policy gets made by, those of us at the Capitol without a whole lot of input from people on the ground. Now, that's a difficult thing to do, right? But I think that's part of the problem. I got elected in 2016. I think I was 32 years old or something like that. And I knew a little bit about a lot of stuff, but I wasn't an expert in everything. And nobody is, right?
Right.
And the way that urban schools operate and the challenges that kids come to school with at times is probably different than how it is in Burns Flat, Oklahoma, or something like that. But the Burns Flat guy and we're trying to make one vote on how it works in both places. And, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work the same in both places, right? And so, like, there is something structurally wrong with that, and we have to, really, really work through and figure that out. I have been at times a pretty vocal critic of your buddy Ryan Walters, and that's been largely because I don't like the way he goes about his business. And I think that all of the
rhetoric. To be honest, I'm not a fan of that either. I'm not a fan of that either.
But when it was the equivalent of taking out a multi-million-dollar ad against Tulsa and say, don't move here because our schools are terrible and our superintendent's garbage and all this kind of stuff, as opposed to really thinking about, you got more resources than ever before at the State Department of Education. If something is wrong, if something is structurally wrong, there's some money that we can be spending to figure out what's going on. I will also say, and this is one, we talked about me running for mayor. The reality is, one of the big challenges in literacy and everything else is, our affordable housing problem in Tulsa is a problem. We evict a lot of people, kids didn't have a great place to sleep, whatever the case may be. That's a challenge. Now, I'm not saying it's across the board, but it is an example of it. And I always said, look, if I'm asking Ebony Johnson, who's the superintendent of Tulsa Public Schools, that she has to deal with my affordable housing problem, well, then I have to deal with her literacy problem too. Like, I have a role in helping in doing that. And I always hoped that Ryan Walters would be somebody who would be like, you know what, some schools in this state are facing the kind of challenges that aren't just, we can fix those in 2 weeks.
Right.
I don't think that there's people in schools right now, and this may be where he disagrees with me. Like, I don't think teacher unions are terrorist organizations or anything like that.
Oh my God.
And he may disagree with me on this, but I don't think people go to school to actively make kids worse off. And I'm not sure that he believes that either, but he says it. And it's like, why do you do that? Why do you do that?
Right.
It's not helpful.
Yeah. It's almost like one long ad campaign is what I feel like it is.
Yeah.
And because I've heard from people that they're like, I thought he would stop that after the campaigning was over, but then he just kept going, and they were like, what?
Well, when he was on our show, when he was fixing to get elected, I told him, I was like, please don't say woke. And I'm like, Jacob, please stop mentioning his name. You're feeding the beast.
Right.
Stop giving him coverage.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
But Jacob can't stand it. And I appreciate Jacob's passion for standing up and stuff, but you've stood up. We've seen that you stood up. Stop giving him the power.
Yeah.
But I mean, he is state superintendent, so that's a pretty big, mouthpiece he's got there.
I mean,
so
that's the thing, man. I think about, there's 700,000 kids who are dependent on him to get it right. And I mean, hell, truth be told, I would like for him to get it right, not necessarily
right. Thank you for saying that.
You got to get it right for 700,000 kids, and I just don't think he's doing that. I think he's too distracted by, I don't know if it's something he wants to do in the future or something like that. I'll tell you, I've actually tried to meet with him, and that has not worked out.
Me either. I mean, me either. He's been in my backyard, and I can't get a hold of him either. So
yeah, well, I mean, I'm a state representative and leader of the Black Caucus in a city where he threatened to take away the accreditation of our school district. I thought that might be grounds for a conversation, but it was not. Yeah. And so, like, for me, I think about the responsibility I feel as a state legislator, and we talked about this before. You guys came at me. Whoever runs your Twitter deal came at me, and I think you said that. You guys said I was owned by somebody. I'm just gonna
let Tim.
Let that go. And I said, okay, well, if you guys got a beef with me, let's talk, right? And so, like, for me, I think the best way to handle those issues is to is to have conversation with people who may disagree with you or not, And so,
when was this?
This was before we did it.
Our initial visit at Owasso.
No, this was before that. Yeah, it was before that.
No,
there was
Monroe.
Oh yeah. I will. If you guys don't believe me, I'll put it in our group text.
Please, please, because I don't remember that. If it was me, that
was not us. First of all,
I actually do not know who it was because I don't think I asked. I assumed it was Ron, but I don't know who it was.
First of all, I'm very, very white, so I would never say to you, you're owned by anybody, and I don't think.
I don't know of any instance of something you said or did that would have.
We tried to get your attention, but you messaged me right back.
Yeah,
you messaged me right back.
My only point in all this is that I've never ever hesitated at engaging folks who may disagree, but who may criticize me, because I've realized that I'm in a different place as an elected official, right? Like, so when I decide to put my name on the ballot, it changes the nature sometimes of the conversation being like, because there's some dehumanization of it, right? Like, you're almost like a cartoon character for a lot of people, I guess is the point.
2 dimensions,
yeah. And so you got to separate, your personal feelings about something, and know that folks really probably don't know you very well. They know about things you said in the newspaper. They know things that they may have read or something that somebody told them. And so, oftentimes my inclination is, if people are willing to sit down, it's like, okay, well, you know what? If you're going to say things about me, you might as well go ahead and know me. And in that way you can decide if you really want to say them. So
that is why it was so great that you came to Matt Eats and talked to us today, because you're a representative of Owasso, part of Owasso.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And you came and spoke to us, and Mark Van Kuren was there, and he's like, we're leadership. We'll do whatever we want to do, and blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's a good thing about being in power over there, man. Figure it out.
And to be clear, Lane said it was heat. It was
yeah,
him.
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
Well, he
Lane.
came back and said he's never interacted with you, so I think he was just joking.
No.
I do want to put. Adam had a comment here about Ryan Walters. Superintendent Ryan Walters is awesome and is holding libtards accountable.
Oh my God.
LOL. Feel the pain. I'm so glad I moved here from Washington State. My conservative vote finally matters. That's funny. Yeah. I appreciate the comment, Adam.
What's a libtard?
I hate that term.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Libtard, fascist, bigot, woke. I can't stand the left liberal mob
or the demon rat. I love that one, demon rat. This stuff doesn't help. That kind of language.
Well, I mean,
really,
look, you know, where I think some people, you know, it's fun for them and everything. I think we do have to.
Absolutely.
I think there is some stuff, and again, like I try to be careful in the things that I say. I mean, look, I don't even know what the other side of a libtard is, what I would call somebody who's conservative, but I don't even know what the word would be, and I have no interest in knowing.
I believe you just said libtard. Okay.
But I do think that sometimes, you know, we can get carried away with that, but I understand people have fun with it, but I think we do have to be responsible and careful at times.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have to. We have to be.
I appreciate that.
Common sense. Just take care of the kids, take care of your community, work together. If your neighbor's grass needs mowed, walk over and ask if they need help mowing their grass.
Yeah.
I think that people who are on different sides of the political spectrum should spend more time together. I mean, if nothing else, it'll give you some fun stuff to talk about and visit about, and it's I think it's a good mental exercise to do that, right?
Absolutely.
And maybe because I do it all the time with my colleagues in Oklahoma City, but it shapes you a lot different. I think you can't really be a true patriot, I think, in this country if you only spend time with people that agree with you. It's actually anti who we're supposed to be. We're not supposed to be in echo chambers all the time. We ought to be engaged in the town square about the things that are going to make or break the future. So.
Yeah, because if you only ever get validation for your own views, you never are challenged with another perspective, which means you can't look at something from all sides. It's just, oh, I was right, and I know I'm right because I'm right. And that's not good. What were you going to say, Ron?
I was going to ask Monroe, if, God forbid, you don't get elected as mayor of Tulsa, you still get to be representative, correct?
No, I'm not running for election. There's I already got some folks running in my legislative seat. It's kind of funny when I go to these events and I hear somebody saying they're running for House District 72, and I'm like, whoa. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like it's like as soon as you announce you're not running, and people have shovels to dig your legislative grave, throw your body in it.
Oh man,
that's so no, I'm going to be. I'm going to be done with the legislature. I'll finish it 8 years, so I'll finish this term out. So I got next session and next year up until November when the new legislature gets sworn in. But I'm proud of the time that
but you're not done with politics, though. Surely not. I mean, you can't be done with politics. You're too good. You're too good.
Well, the thing about it is we're going to work hard this mayor's race, and we're going to win this mayor's race. But at some point, I think you got to be proud of the service that you've rendered. And once I walk out of the mayor's office, I think I'm gonna be really proud of what I was able to accomplish with people, because I had to do it with people, right? I've only been successful in the legislature because I had to work with people who disagree with me. I'm only going to be successful in the mayor's office. So I'm going to have to work with people in this community from a lot of different stripes and beliefs and opinions. And we're going to get a lot of amazing things done for Tulsa. And I think whenever that public service is done, I'm going to be really proud of. I'm going to be proud of the people I worked with. So I have no regrets about my time in public office, and I'm going to make sure that I keep it that way.
Awesome. Well, you know what? I'm excited for you, man. I've got nothing but love for you. When I met you there at Matt Eats, you surprised me. I was like, wow, he's a lot more personable than I thought he was.
What'd you think, man?
I didn't have any thoughts. Yeah. Because at that time I didn't have a lot of exposure with politicians in general. Yeah. You see them on TV, and so it was, it's always a pleasure talking to you. But we're way over the hour, and I apologize for that if you had any time constraints. But I appreciate you staying.
Yes, thank you so much. Would you come back on?
Sometime? You guys are gonna get tired of seeing me.
No,
No,
okay.
never.
Yeah, that's good. That's
But-
good stuff.
Maybe we can come back in and check in on the campaign a little bit later on.
Yeah, let's do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd appreciate that. But I give you the last couple of minutes to say whatever it is you need to say to the people
Or
of Tulsa or
where people can
Broken
find
Arrow or-
you.
Yeah.
Online.
Website.
So people can find the mayoral campaign website, monroeformayor.com. We got Monroe for Tulsa on Twitter. I'm actually at Mo Nichols, Rep Nichols on Twitter. And so you can find us on all the socials, Monroe for Tulsa. I think the thing that I would leave us with tonight is not about my campaign or not about anything like that. But it really is about some of the stuff we talked about today, how we treat each other. There's this saying that says the one thing we learn from history is we never learn. And right now we're seeing a situation unfold in Israel that is really disheartening and really sad. I've talked to some of my friends in the Jewish community today, one of which had a friend who's already been killed there. And really my message is about how we talk about this on socials. The fact is it's a terrorist group that's killing innocent people. This is not something against all Palestinians or anything like that. This is not a political argument. This is about evil that exists in this world. And I think we have to be really careful in this country because we have a blessing in this country. We don't have to worry about that as much. And so how we treat each other could be a great blessing, a great example for other folks across the country. And so, just a prayer for the folks who are living in fear right now, a prayer for folks who can't find their family members, those who have passed away, and those here in the States and around the world who are watching this unfold and helplessly watching this unfold. I just want to make sure that as all of us, a lot of people on this deal, we're on message boards, we're offering our opinion as if we are, experts in Mideast policy. I think we need to just make sure we govern ourselves accordingly, think about the blessings that we have, and offer up our help, our assistance, and our prayers for the folks who are suffering right now.
Yeah, well said, sir,
Good
and we
stuff.
certainly
Good stuff.
appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and wrap the show up with that. We'll pull you out, but we're gonna do like the outro. If you want to hang around so we can chit chat afterward, we'll catch you on the other side.
Okay, hey, I do have to run to something. So you guys, I'll catch you guys in a
No, you're good, man. Thank you so much.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so
All
much,
right, take care.
Monroe.
All right, bye.
Peace.
Bye.
All right, everybody. That was Monroe Nichols. You know what? It was a great show. He's a gentleman. I mean, I gotta say,
I love the dude. I love the dude.
yeah,
That was a great show.
Yeah, it was. So if you had a preconceived notion of what Monroe believed or how you thought he might be, and if that was changed, leave that in the comment section and let us know, because we're here to put people in front of you that may challenge your belief.
You can't tell Tim what to do.
Tim got to stop blasting him on Twitter. I don't remember ever saying that.
No.
The only thing that might have happened was leading up to the school issue. If he didn't respond to me in emails
by the teacher union, maybe.
right about the book stuff, if he hadn't responded to me in email, I may have gone onto Twitter and said something about it, because I did that to other people as well. About gaggle and other stuff, but I don't remember it. But I think he'll send that to us. So, we'll see.
Dusty Beavers is, oh my God.
So yeah, that's the next thing. Ron and I are gonna shut this down, and we're gonna take a little break. We're gonna come back and try to watch the District 32, isn't it? Isn't it 32?
Yes. Yes.
Beavers with Beavers. We're going to watch that vote unfold and see how that turns out tonight. If y'all want to come onto the Loudmouth, we're going to do it just to the Loudmouth.
Just the Loudmouth, yeah.
Pray for a JJ win. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We'll see. You okay there? Was that your chair?
Yeah, that was my chair, but I mean,
okay.
It's not looking good for JJ. Oh my God.
Yeah, is it not? Are you looking at the numbers now?
Yeah, the numbers are, the early votes come in. It's Gene Hashier.
Oh, well, I mean, if that's, let's see.
Early votes is usually what happens in the end.
Let's see. District 32 special election. Well, you know what? Let's cut this off and take
that's
the loudmouths, because this title has Monroe Nichols on it, and I don't want to. I don't want to taint the show, guys. Thank you so much for coming in and for all your questions. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the loudmouths. You'll have to go there for this one. All right, we'll see you.
See ya.
Peace.